All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of our Better Business Conversations with Practice Better. I'm Jen, Business Success Coach with Practice Better. Today, I'm joined by our very special guest for our session, Nicole Harlow. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. So I wanted to introduce Nicole for anyone tuning in who may be new to her. So Nicole is a brand strategist and is the CEO of Brand Better Design Studio. She teaches entrepreneurs how to think beyond the logo and develop deep and powerful brand messages. So with the Brand Better team, she helps entrepreneurs launch knockout brands that their customers really fall in love with. And in her 13 plus years of entrepreneurial experience, Nicole has built many of her own successful brands in the women's health space, transformational coaching, online education, as well as yoga. She's also a best-selling author, host of the iTunes Top 50 Self-Help podcast, The Spirited Entrepreneur, and online summit organizer for Green Makeup Bag, as well as profitable virtual wellness business. Wow. So as everyone can see, Nicole has such a wealth of knowledge, is so accomplished, and we're just honored to have you here today, Nicole. So you're going to be talking to us all about how to build a wellness expert brand, which, as we were just saying, I think this is a topic that's really going to resonate with our Practice Better community. I know they're so keen to learn about branding and what that even means for their business, why it's important. So yeah, I'll let you take it away, Nicole, and share with us all of your amazing expertise.
Absolutely, Jen, and thanks for that introduction. One of the things, so we work with a lot of clients that come from the wellness world. In fact, almost all of our clients come from the wellness world, especially because that's where my background is, which I'm going to pull up my slides in a second and I'll talk you through a little bit about my background. But I find that most of the people that we talk to have a sense that they need branding, but they don't really know what branding is. So I'm going to go back to basics today and talk you guys through branding. And I think what a lot of you will learn when you're watching this is branding is actually so much more multifaceted. It's both simple and complex at the same time. So I'm going to pull it over and take it away, Jen. Okay, can you see my screen? Awesome. So as you guys can see, especially people watching, I am a Canva head as well. So we do all of our design work in professional tools, but when it comes to presenting, when it comes to, sharing social media templates and the assets that we have with clients, we love using Canva. And so for anybody who's also a Canva head, don't feel like it's not professional to use it, because it's actually a tool that can make things really easy. So today we are chatting about how to build a wellness expert brand. And just a little bit about kind of beyond the bio that Jen shared about me. I like to just one way that I like to connect when I'm teaching and I'm talking about branding is to give a little bit of the 411 on my background and how I got into branding and how I started Brand Better. So my background is I've been an online entrepreneur for over 13 years. I like to tell people that I started out as an entrepreneur because I felt unemployable. I felt like from the very beginning, as soon as I graduated from my master's program, I knew that I wanted to start my own business, but I didn't really have a good sense of what that was. And so I fell into branding over many, many years and many businesses that I like to say the businesses that kind of hit the cutting room floor. So there was always a lot of time spent, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of energy around creating businesses. I always loved that first, that spark of creativity, the spark of having an idea. It took me a while to realize that, we all have a recipe, whether you are someone who follows astrology or you like your Myers-Briggs or your Kolbe or any of these personality tests. We are multifaceted beings and we have lots of different ways about ways about ourselves. But one thing that I learned over years of trial and error is that I love being an ideas generating machine. I love being a creator. And like many of you watching who probably have somewhat stumbled into the work that you're doing because of a series of kind of pulls and curiosity. It was kind of the same for me, but for a while I really felt like, God, why do I keep not sticking with one thing? That was probably my biggest frustration with myself. Is I would come up with ideas, I would start it, I would brand it, I would make the website, I would come up with a strategic plan, and I just wouldn't have any enthusiasm for what it was, you know. And so I took lots of detours. The reason why I have such an extensive experience in the wellness industry is because I took pivots and detours through the wellness industry. So teaching yoga, that was one of those. You know, I was full-time in the studio, teaching yoga and meditation and movement practices and ecstatic dance and really anything that has to do with the body and ecstatic states in the body. I took another journey over here that led me down into which is where I connect with a lot of our functional medicine clients. Took me down a nutrition and health coaching, women's health, hormones. I started a little clinic that I ran for about a year. And so I connect with our clients because even though now I focus exclusively on branding, that is the only business that I'm running. I've done a lot of these things in the world, right? And so it's given me context to see branding in a different way. And it's also given me the context to chat with our clients about, you know, building a logo for them, but then also asking them questions around methylation issues and protocols. And so I am personally curious in this world as well. And it means that the avatar that we work with and the work that we do are really well aligned now. So that's just a little deeper into how I got into this work. I realized at a certain point that instead of just starting businesses and adding, you know, putting them on the cutting room floor, that what I was actually really enjoying was helping other people grow their businesses, helping other brands come to fruition. You know, I love that creative part. And so that's what really got me into it. I started out as a graphic designer and moved on to a web designer. But it really took years for even the understanding and the sense of what branding is to kind of come together, because like I said in the intro, this is it's simple, but it's complex at the same time. And so when people ask, you know, what is a brand? Sometimes it's easy to just say a brand is everything. A brand is every piece, every touch point that your client or potential client, a potential customer comes in contact with. A good example of this is, you know, love it or hate it. Like I like to use Disney or Disney World as an example, where every piece of that experience, from the language of the cashier at the checkout to the uniforms to the you know, bubbly, unique script of Disney, it is all organized around the central concept of the brand, you know, and that brand is it stands for something for people. And I love this quote. I like to start off, you know, when you need to understand what a brand really is. I love this quote by Seth Godin. I feel like it just really typifies that. So he says a brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that when taken together account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. So that's a little bit abstract. So when I unpack that, for me, that just represents that a brand, it goes way, way beyond the logo. And if you could take away one point from today's conversation, it would be that the brand is so much more than just a logo. You can even embody your brand, you know, you as an owner, you as your employees, the health coach that you hire to complement your functional medicine practice. A person can embody the brands, the brand values, the brand tone of voice, the brand personality, the way that people feel when they interact with you, the way that they feel when they are on your social media channel or your website, and even the way that people feel when they see your logo. We'll do a little bit of a show and tell at the end of this presentation, where you can just see some of the clients that we work with. And what I really want to have you focus on as I kind of go through that slideshow is just like, how different the feeling space changes from logo to logo, so it really is just colors and pixels and symbols and shapes all put together. But when it's executed well, it can really elicit a feeling space as well. And I think that's what a lot of the work that we do and a lot of the teaching that I do is around developing brands that are not only authentic and unique, but have empathy and authenticity to them as well. One of the other basic things that I wanted to just really clear up before we go a little deeper into the branding conversation, into a little bit of the teachable topics, is the difference between brick and mortar and bringing your business online. So I put this in here just because I think a lot of people watching are either a brick and mortar business coming online, or you may have just decided to start off and go completely virtual. And I think regardless of whether you're in camp A or camp B, it's important to know the difference between having an online business versus a brick and mortar business. So whether you're bringing it online or whether you're just starting from scratch. And the way that I think about it is kind of one of the most helpful things, I think, is to share an example. So if I was to sit here and I need to go to the dentist, say, I would be searching out, probably using my app on my insurance, or I would do a quick Google. And, this is familiar. You can kind of walk through with me, like the process that you would do if you had to find a dentist and you didn't have one. Maybe you'd ask for some recommendations from friends, but more likely you would go online and you'd find somebody that hit your criteria. And the criteria would be pretty slim, pretty neutral, less personality based and more around distance. I don't want somebody that's an hour away from my house. So how close can I get it to my house? So it's only going to take me a couple minutes to get there. Do they take my insurance? If that's a consideration. And then if you're going to go one level deeper, and maybe you're going to go on and read some reviews about that person's practice, did they do a good job? Do they like them, etc. I dare say that a lot of people, I think it's becoming easier and easier to do that because we've got reviews for everything, but it wasn't like that 5 or 10 years ago, that there's Facebook reviews and Google reviews. So I'd say that's kind of a new consideration, is that like we can judge going to the dentist or going to a gynecologist or family practitioner by what other people, strangers, have reviewed, So I'm setting that up as like, this is kind of the standard for finding brick and mortar practitioner. But when you bring your business online, the rules of engagement could not be more completely different. You are now dealing with, you have to be suddenly more relatable, more likable, more welcoming to more people. Because you are in a pool, let's say you are classic functional medicine practitioner that works with chronic fatigue, women with chronic fatigue within, ages 40 to 60, right? This is your practice, and maybe you have a group program, or maybe you work one-on-one, like a lot of our clients do, both of those, the group program and the one-on-ones. You need to show up in a way that is instantly relatable. And a lot of our clients, haven't been in that position before. You may be listening to this as somebody who's like had 15 years of medical training and extraneous training. Perhaps you're a health coach, and then you got your functional medicine certification. Maybe you're a nutritionist or a dietitian. The fact is, you put some time and effort into learning your craft, learning your trade. Then you probably took some time into learning really how to develop protocols and how to get results and how to really work with clients. And now, and I can sense your frustration, because everybody shows up on our doorstep with a similar frustration, which is, I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to bring myself online. I don't know how to show up authentically. I actually have I have this little, I forgot I had this list on here. So this is a good, good teaching points too. And I'm sure you resonate with at least one, maybe all of these. When we have our clients come to us, here are some of the things that they say when they're moving online. I don't have a niche or niche, depending. And I know that I need one. I don't know how to communicate what I do, who I help, who I am. I just don't know how to communicate here. You know, people are used to writing and reading academic papers. They're used to like communicating in a more professorial way. So suddenly you have to like, do I have to get on TikTok and do dances? You know, so there's a lot of questions around that. I feel too academic and professional sounding, and I don't know how to be relatable. I'm not sure my visual branding, what my visual branding and logo should communicate. And then even things like I'm questioning everything, like from how should I dress, how I should post on social media, and how should I be online. And I just want to say, you know, if you're questioning any of these things, one, come talk to me. I'm a good resource for all of this. And two, every single part of this, everything that you see on the screen and more is all branding. When I'm working with a branding client, we are talking about the types of photos they should be taking. When they plan a professional photo shoot, I am there on Zoom walking them through, what are you going to wear? How are you going to do your makeup if applicable? How are you going to do your hair? What kind of vibe do we want to put across? Like, we don't necessarily want you in the white lab coat. Like, let's bring some realness into this. You know, let's have you in a t-shirt with your new logo on. It looks amazing. Let's have you in an awesome motorcycle jacket because that's to your vibe, you know, or let's have you sitting on your couch with some like ripped jeans and a cup of tea and a nice sweater. So we like to approach branding that every brand is completely unique, you know, and we want to try to create something with our umbrella overarching brand. So every piece that the brand touches, we want that to be relatable. But when I say relatable, I want to make sure that it makes sense, that I don't mean bright and bubbly. You don't have to show up the way that I show up as the brand and the face of Brand Better. You can show up like you know, you can show up like, if you are gruff and you are smart and you are scrappy and you love debating and you love to be a jester or a maverick, you can absolutely show up like that. Because one of the most important things to learn about branding is that in order to be likable, and I'm just like, this is not an official quote, but I'm saying this, you know, in order to be more likable, we have to be willing to show up and be disliked at the same time, you know. For myself, like if I show up with the values that are friendly and warm and authentic and like a best friend, you know, I want to show up for our clients in a way that is always friendly and you feel like part of the family. Well, I have to be ready, and this happens to us, you know, I have to be ready that there are some very, very uptight corporate types that want me to communicate in a different way, and I won't compromise those values. I won't compromise and show up in a different way than we have promised ourselves to show up like a brand. And so part of the work that we do with our clients is getting into that magnetic space, meaning that in order to magnetize clients to you, you have to have a personality. You have to have, and you have to showcase that, whether that's on social media, whether that's through your web copy, or the way you blog, or the way you show up on your sales calls, or the way you teach when you're up on stage or in a webinar. How can we show up in a way that is authentic to our brand and magnetizes the right people to us because they feel a connection with that? But we have to be prepared for other people for the people who don't get that right message to be repelled by that. And that's okay, because if you don't have that magnetism, if you're not magnetic, then you are in that realm of like nebulous neutrality, and it doesn't magnetize anything to you. So this is that, like the classic, like, you know, you're nothing to anybody, you know, you are just like, if you don't have a position, if you don't have a personality there in business, and your personality could be bright colors and it could be in your face, and that is going to draw the right type of person that you resonate with. So there's a real power and a real magnetism to all of these things. And this is moving kind of a little bit deeper. I feel like we've just set the we've set the ethos of branding. We've kind of set the definitions of what branding is, and what you need to think about when you're coming online. And so I kind of want to switch gears here into a little bit more of like the behind the scenes of what branding is, you know, on a really practical level. Just taking a little sip. So we've got 6 different parts of this branding wheel. And I like to think of the darker parts on the right-hand side as the parts that either you're aware of, you might not have been sure that this would constitute branding. Most people would just say, if I said what's branding, they go up here. That's all, it's my logo. I just got one, you know, I went on Fiverr and I got a logo, or I just made something myself on Canva and it's cool. I got one JPEG file and I'm like, no. That's not even like most people just know this, but like even within the visual side of things, we want to create, like what we create for our clients is an entire suite of visual identity. So it's not just about one logo. It's like, do you have your logo in, do you have some marks? Do you have your logos in different colors? Do you have guidelines? So when you hire a social media agency, when you hire a virtual assistant, you can pass off those guidelines to a PDF document that says, this is exactly how we stay consistent. Most of our clients are lacking clarity, and they're lacking consistency, and they're lacking confidence. And those 3 things kind of play together. When you have all of those questions answered, it's a lot easier to hire a virtual assistant and say, this is, even for yourself, if you're doing all the work yourself, it's easy to stay on brand because you look and you say, oh, I have the color code. You know, I don't have to pick a different color red every time. I don't have to pick a different font every time. And when we make these subtle changes, this is when we look at a brand and we go, well, that brand looks legit. You know, even if you are a practitioner, wellness practitioner, people are looking, we live, for better or worse, we live right now in a very sophisticated market. Our people have seen it all. They have probably tried out a lot of it, depending on what industry you're in. They're cynical, and our subconscious is able to judge very quickly on whether something is quality or not. There's a statistic that says when you have a half a second on your website to make a first impression. When that means, you know, there's a great book called Thinking Fast and Slow that talks a lot about this, where we make very subtle and profound and subconscious decisions about things almost immediately. And so I kind of throw that back into your court to say, like, what impression are you making on your website when somebody just splashes or bounces onto the page? What do your pictures look like? Are the colors telling the story that you want? Is the visual logo as professional looking as you would like? You know, if you were being judged not necessarily on the transformation that you could, a lot of people kind of rest back on like, but I have a great transformation. Like, I know that I can help people. Yes, but are people actually getting to you? Because if they're looking at your website or your social media, or you're like, old janky logo that is just like the equivalent of having a bad haircut or something, it's like just not working for you, it's outdated, then some portion of people are going to make that judgment before they even get to the conversation about the transformation. So that's, you know, that's the visual side, but we also have on the visual side of it as well, we've got the website and digital platforms. We talked a little bit about that. And then we've got the social media and the content. So these are the things that people kind of see on the surface. And this is all branding. Every single part of it is a piece of the branding wheel. And then these lighter colors over here, you can kind of like, these are a little bit more under the surface. They're a little bit harder to tease out. They're a little bit harder to create because they require some work on our part. You know, a lot of us, myself included, it's hard to sit down and like talk about what makes us unique and what is our individual brand voice, you know, and some of it feels a little obtuse that it's like hard to even figure out what that is. And that's all over here. So this is like the deep work that we do with clients, which is like the brand story. How do you show up as a guide for your clients? You know, do you show up like a wise sage, or do you show up like the jester? Do you show up like the girl next door or the guy next door? So you're kind of the everyday, or every man or every woman, kind of showing up like a friend for them. You're showing up like a hero, like the inspiration for them. So we use archetypes to kind of work out the brand story. We connect with our mission, we connect with our values. Over here, we have what we'd call the brand voice and the tone of voice. You know, do you show up like snarky, and do you curse? You know, these are all stylistic choices that you get to make. Like, are you known as like the doc that people could kind of sit down and have a beer with? You know, all jokes aside about whether they just drink beer or not, let's say like a keto friendly hard seltzer or something like that, hard kombucha. But are you like that down to earth kind of going to keep it real with you, but you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea? And we don't want to be everyone's cup of tea. That's, you know, point number 2. Like, if you could learn anything in this class, I want you to leave with this feeling of like, you don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. In fact, you should be striving for that. You should be striving for, like, we still want to show up with kindness and respectfulness always, you know, empathy for other people always, but like, how do we show up in a way that is authentic to ourselves, authentic to our brand, you know? This last part here is brand positioning and brand personality, which are 2 similar but slightly different things. You know, one, we want to make sure that we have a good sense of, are you showing up as the you know, the Lexus or the Porsche or the Tesla of your industry? Are you showing up like the Toyota of your industry? You know, are you showing up as like the 𝗕𝗄𝘁𝘁𝗲𝗄𝘁 of your industry? So we get to choose. You know, it doesn't mean top always means better. Like, you can have a wonderful, there's so many facets that come into building a business, and several of them around lifestyle, several of them around like, you know, it reminds me of back in the day when I was trying to make this whole business thing work, and I was still waitressing at night. I was always, maybe there's more money in fine dining, but I always said, I'm a slinger. I'm not necessarily a fine dining server. I liked, you know, pizza and beer restaurants. Where do I get to be like, where I can sit and I can joke around with someone? And it's never been in my brand, whether that the brand is me or the brand is the business. I never want it to feel stuffy. And so I'm going to give you full permission to be able to show up in the way that feels true to you, you know. And of course there's strategy there, and it's great to sit down and talk with somebody like myself, brand strategist, around, you know, is there money in showing up like that? Are you actually able to build a business? And are there some things that you should share in your business and share in your personality, and some things that you should keep back too? So sometimes just being able to share that with another person is really helpful too. So you guys with me? We've got branding wheel. Hopefully by now you have a much better sense about the holistic view of what branding is, and how there's a lot going on here. We've got the stuff that people see, and we've got the stuff that people feel and they connect to. And they can connect with this visual side as well, but this side is really more of the deeper work. And then this side over here is the manifestation of that deeper work. So when we find out, like, if you can kind of think of how they play together, when we find out the brand positioning, the brand personality, the story, missions, values, voice, then we can go over here and we can start creating the logos, the fonts, the colors, but not the other way around. You know, we don't start with the visual and try to shoehorn a brand story into that. We want to start with the deeper understanding of who the brand is, what the brand is, and what the goal and vision is for the brand, and then work our way forward to the visual side. You know, what colors represent that? What hasn't really been done in your industry before? There's a great book by a guy, his name is Marty Neumeier, and he wrote this book called Zag. And I really like it. What I like is the idea of it, where you want to zag where everybody else is zigging. And so that's kind of abstract. What it really means, and when it breaks down to the branding, is what we're trying to find is this, like, this perfect the perfect connection between like what looking and doing competitive research and seeing what everybody else in the industry, like, are there trends that we can look at? Trends both in kind of personality and trends in visual. And can we find a way to zag, you know, but you don't want to zag too far that it's a complete mismatch with your industry. And I'll give an example in a second so you can kind of see where my head's at with this. But we want to try to see, can we zag you a little bit? Can we make you stand out just a little bit more? You know, how do we make a brand, i.e. your business, a no-brainer choice in what you do? One of the examples that I love for this is take the yoga studio world. So a world that I was very intimate with for many, many years. And there's a certain, like, it's almost become a pastiche of like what to expect in like a yoga studio. Just like, oh, we're going to have a Buddha and we're going to have a lotus flower opening up, maybe with a little Buddha sitting on it. And we're going to have really relaxing colors. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I think most people would agree that that is overdone now. I think that it's become almost like a cliche, you know, you're going to brand a yoga studio and we're going to like make it really like, it's like some light blues and maybe with a or like another thing is like in the thyroid health world, we see a lot of butterflies, you know, oh yeah, but the thyroid is in the shape of the butterfly. Okay, got it. Because I've seen it like 100 times or more. So there's a yoga studio, Yoga for the People. And when they came out, I don't know if it was about 10 years ago, they were like New York City. They zagged. They took the whole yoga branding and they turned it on its head. They went for black and white. They went for rap music references. They went for like diversity and inclusivity. They went for a brand that was like on social media was just like funny and cheeky and had some like pizzazz to it, had a little bit of panache to it, just kind of showed up in a way that was unexpected, and they got a lot of traction for that. But that's not for everybody, you know? So you kind of seeing the magnetism of somebody like myself, which is like, heck yeah, I want to go to yoga class and like listen to some Busta Rhymes or something. Like I think that sounded really cool to me. I like that it was different. I like that it was, you know, had some personality and some edge to it. And that could just as easily turn somebody else off. But I like that example because it kind of gives us a good sense of like, what does it look like to zag? They weren't so far out that like no yoga people ever wanted to go to that studio because it wasn't like, you know, it's not so like off the mark, like a yoga studio that looks like a mechanic's place, a garage or something like that. You know, we're going to do something really different. We're going to make it like completely oddball. No, it was adjacent. It was, there's a good formula. It's a little bit hard to describe, but I'm going to try my best here. But one thing that I learned that I loved is just like, what do you get when you put two different things together? Like if you were to put, well, let's take a example. I was just talking to Jen before this about going to a spinning class for the first time, and I really loved it, you know? And so what happens when you put two different, not adjacent, but two different industries together and create a third style? And so in that, when I think of that example, I was like, well, what they did is they took exercise classes, right? Bright fluorescent lights, sprung floor, like people crammed into a room, and you kind of get that little bit of like a 1980s kind of vibe with like the, you know, the leg warmers and stuff like that. So then you take that like exercise class and you cross it with going to a club. And what happens when you put those two together? Well, you get something that people are talking about. You get something that is unique. You get riding a bike while there's, you know, it's dark and then there's flashes of like cool lights and you got like music just kind of blaring where you feel like you're out at a club. You can just like your ears are ringing afterwards. And that's a cool experience, but we can also do that within our own industry too. You know, what if you take X and you like cross-pollinate it with Y and you get Z, which is something completely different. And if that's a little bit too abstract, that is okay, because we are covering a lot of stuff today. And for a lot of you, it will be brand new. So if we're not quite at cross-pollinating X with Y and getting to Z, that's okay. Just focus on the basics. And even that will, start bringing you a little bit more into some brand alignment. I want to take a couple more minutes to go through here and just ground this out with a little bit of reasoning, a little bit of some things to think about as you consider kind of moving your brand forward. I like this why branding is important, because I get a lot of people, that I talk to that don't really seem to think that the branding is all that important. They think, the service that they provide for people is important, which it is. The transformation is important, which it is. But branding itself also is important. And my reasons why are, number one, it sets you apart from your competition. When you start we're trying to position all of our clients in a place where they're the no-brainer choice in their industry. This is, how do you actually become a wellness expert? Like, part of it is through your knowledge and expertise, but I can guarantee you there are a lot of very clever, very capable people who were never able to create a successful business. And part of that reason, there's lots of reasons in that recipe, but one of the reasons is an underdeveloped brand. Never really having something that people could rally behind, never really having something that set them enough apart from the competition for people to actually take notice. One thing that you don't want it to be is the best kept secret. You don't want to be like, no one's talking about you. You don't want to be, when people see your social media, they just keep on going because it's so generic. Or when they see your logo, it doesn't make them feel anything. It's not saying anything really about who you are. It doesn't feel up-leveled or professional. So we want to try to set you apart from your competition, doing a little bit of zagging, a little bit of looking around and saying, how can we set you apart here? Number two is it gives you the opportunity to command higher prices. And that's always a good thing for all of us, right? We have a lot of our clients that is just like, they wait until they do their rebranding with us, and then they'll go through and they'll double their prices, because, and it's not about ripping people off or being manipulative, but like, they're charging the right prices for them, but they weren't able to get to that point. Either they couldn't get people to say yes, or they just couldn't actually say those numbers. It's really hard. It can be really, you got to get used to it. Right. And there's definitely some like upper limit things and self-sabotage that we can hit up against when we're trying to raise our prices. But what we hear resoundingly from our clients is when you rebrand and you have that brand confidence and you have that clarity, what it does is it gives you the confidence. Like I just said, when you have the confidence that everything matches, everything looks up-leveled, everything feels up-leveled. And now it's like the visual, like the clothes that your brand is wearing, the personality, the way that it communicates is now lined up with also the transformation, is also lined up with your expertise, is also lined up with the type of work and service that you do for your clients. So commanding higher prices. I like this one too. It builds loyalty and trust. We rally around brands, whether our brands are sports teams, whether our brands are like, do you get a cup of coffee at a Starbucks, or are you McCafe kind of person? A lot of times the easiest thing is to just go to the like big corporations, but like, do you shop at Walmart or Target? Are you a Whole Foods person, or do you patronize the brand of your small little organic farm in your small little co-op? These are all brands. And, politics, branding there too. What kind of car do you drive? That's an interesting one that I'm going through myself right now, just about to pick out a new car. And it's amazing to see within myself, not being a car person necessarily, I have lots of biases around different brands of cars that I either would never want to drive. Like I couldn't be seen in, I'm not going to name any names, so don't make me. But just saying, like, there are some that I'm like, I could see myself in a X, but I would never drive a B over here. And so like, just start thinking even within yourself, like, why is that? Why is it that I have any preconceived notion or any real like opinion about a brand of car that even if the car was like nice looking, I just like wouldn't want to drive that type of car. Why is that? A lot of it comes back to branding. A lot of it comes back to we are wired to be tribal beings. And so we'll find and we'll link up, given left to our own devices, and marketing exploits the heck out of this for us, for everybody. We start, aligning ourselves with different tribes and different affiliations, from like, I like to shop at 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗏, all the way up to like, I only buy designer, to I won't buy that kind of car, or I shop at this type of place, or I only eat this type of food. We have lots of, we're interacting with brands all day long. And the more that we can kind of start thinking about ourselves, even as a solopreneur, even as a brand new business, as a brand, the better, because we get to build brand loyalty, we get to build that trust, we get referrals, and we get that authenticity, authority, credibility that we're looking for as you step into like, I'm just simply a practitioner, into we are becoming a wellness brand. I am positioning myself as a wellness expert. And this is a good caveat. I just want to say, when I say the word brand, that means even if you're a personal brand, even if your brand is like you.com, NicoleHarlow.com, no brand better, I'm just showing up as Nicole Harlow, that is still a brand. So getting into the branding mindset, getting into taking yourself a bit more seriously about how you show up, what you're wearing, how you communicate, what your website looks like, what your logo on your social media looks like. That kind of builds all of these things, all four of these things. The last thing here is branding is important because it promotes growth through brand extensions. And what I mean by that is, when you're at a point where you want to tack on an online program, when you want to start a group program, when you want to start a podcast or a whole new wing of your business, it becomes a lot easier because you already have the core components there. So you just get to plug some new things in rather than starting from scratch. I think, yeah, this is my last slide. And then we're going to do a little slideshow, a little show and tell through some visual brands that we worked with this year. You might know some of these people, and so it'll be a fun little show and tell. My favorite branding tips, they are both simple and complex, which is what branding is all about. The world would be super boring, and my job would be super boring if there wasn't complexity to this. So it's part of what I love. Number one is to know and love your clients. It comes down to all of this. I love the word empathy. I come back to it a lot. Everything that we do, touch, create, put together in a brand should be just steeped in empathy, just steeped in knowing and loving our clients. It can be super dry when someone tells you to do an ideal client avatar exercise, but when you really connect with it, with what the purpose actually is, it's to just get to know your client more, to really get to know like what makes them tick, what are they worried about, how can you provide better service, a better transformation, how can you work with more clients, i.e. help more people, but also help yourself in growing a business and having financial freedom, which is a beautiful thing to have. A lot of all of this comes back down to knowing your client, the type of person that you want to work with, and really loving them and creating something that they'll love as well. Number two is to weave your brand into everything. So we want to look at every touch point that your potential client, so when they're on the side of like, from when they just Googled about chronic fatigue to a client that you're in the middle of working with, to post clients, how you follow up with them, how you get referrals, how do you keep the relationship going so they know that you care, that you're interested. So we want to look and see and map out what are all the touch points that your clients come in, pre-clients or your customers, what do they come in contact with? And can we make sure to weave your brand into everything? And so sometimes it takes the sometimes it takes just like infusing a little bit of personality in what would be an otherwise dull interaction. So think of filling out forms, or think of success messages when you sign up for someone's mailing list. Can we weave in some visual or verbal personality? So whether that's like, it's brand dependent, you know, that could be gifts, or that could be just a little bit of copy that just makes someone smile or makes someone's day, or just kind of shakes up the pattern a little bit more. And in doing that and weaving your brand through everything, it actually starts to create some confidence and credibility in your customers or pre-customer, because they look at what you've done and everything that you have and go, a lot of time, effort, maybe money, investment has gone into making this. If you are going through the effort of making a little pop-up that connects with me, or taking that extra step in, instead of just delivering a PDF lead magnet, your welcome sequence is really authentic and fun or informative, or whatever the narrative is for your brand. You create some confidence and trust there. You create some credibility, because people look at that and say, well, this is more legitimate than I maybe even originally thought it was, you know, and there's a lot of personality here. So that's number 2. And number 3, I love this one. Be a ruthless editor. I like to always share with people to channel your inner Anna Wintour, your inner 𝗕𝗿𝘰𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗄, your inner beauty magazine, fashion magazine editor, and be ruthless. Once you have clear guidelines around what your branding is, who your brand is and isn't, it is easy to make decisions and push things and cut them, leave them right on the floor. So if it's not like, if you've built a brand around a certain motif, you don't have to worry about what to post on social media. For instance, ever since I hired my social media manager, who's amazing, by the way, and I will shout out her praises all over the place, she makes every decision easy for me. I don't have to worry about what to post. Why? Because we have a clear set of guidelines of, this is how we post, this is what our grid looks like. And so there's a lot of the branding decisions that we make, and a lot of the things that we work with our clients, is about cutting down decisions that you need to make. And so it's easier to be a ruthless editor. Like, if your brand is gold and green, well, we don't have to post that red picture over there. We don't have to repost this thing. Why? Because it doesn't fit in with what we're doing, you know? And so think about yourself as an editor, channel your inner fashion magazine editor, and you will be at least one step further towards having an amazing brand. Let's just finish off with a little show and tell. So what I want you to do is I go through, one is, it's a great opportunity for me to just like shout out some of our favorite clients that we work with. Like I said, you'll probably know some of these people, especially Megan Walker over at Clinician Business Labs, and one other brand that we actually made for her, which I can't shout out yet because it's actually a secret. So I can't show it, which is a shame, because it's actually really, really cool. So I want you to look and just feel into, as I go through, feel into how the feeling space changes. I'm sure you could come up with adjectives to describe all of these brands as we go through. Some are going to be more bright, some more subdued. Some have an energy that really, like this, kind of punches you in the face. And it's great because you don't see a lot of this. This is a great example of a client who decided to zag, where you see a lot of in this industry, almost brands that look a little more on the kind of medical side. Or we have Megan that decides to zag and like, no, I'm going to go with bright colors. We're going to do black instead of white space. We're going to make it sophisticated, but we're going to give it a real boldness too. So we've got Megan. You guys probably know Sachin as well. Perfect Practice. We didn't create this logo, but we modernized it. So he came to us wanting to take the brand assets that he already had and create cohesion through the brand. And so for us, that meant creating PDF guides, service menus, rethinking and redesigning this logo, kind of bringing it in with fresh colors. We call it a brand polish. And so I want you to know, I show this example because a lot of our clients, they like the core, they like the bones of their logo or their visual or their website, and they want to improve on it. And so we love doing that. It's a nice creative challenge to like polish something that's already pretty good. Larissa at True Health, giving us some feelings, you know, around sacred geometry, connection. This blue gives us a good vibe. We've got Our Children's Future. They are a nonprofit for children, obviously. And we wanted something that was kind of bright and primary, that connected us to the sort of freshness and happiness of children. Living Proof, 𝗕𝗲𝘁𝘁𝗲𝗿. Again, this was a polish project. So what we needed to do was give her assets that she could grow her brand into. We needed to modernize the website, the color palettes, her guide that goes out to clients. This one is going to punch you in the face. This is DJ's superhero brands. We name our clients as well if they don't have a name. And so she came in with an idea. She's a naturopathic skincare doc. She's a nerd. She's a self-professed nerd. I'm not calling her one. She loves Comic-Con. She speaks at Comic-Con. She makes potions, skin potions. And so we were like, what if we made you into a superhero? And so we actually won an award for this logo just a couple of weeks ago, a marketing and communications award. And we came up with this concept of like, we want to create a superhero brand for her. So we got a comic book artist to draw a picture of her in a cool, like kind of comic book outfit. We have that up on the website. And Jen and I will talk in the end about the Brand Planner Toolkit a little bit, but when you grab that, that's our freebie. You can use these QR codes to watch any of the testimonials and experience of our clients, what it was like going, not even just working with us, but just like, what is it like going through the branding process? Because it can be pretty daunting. Fab Fertile, we take it way back. It's neutral. It's subtle. We've got, she does fertility treatments. So we've got the egg, we've got conception, we've got fertility, and fertility problems can be really frustrating for people. It can be really overwhelming. And so we wanted to have a brand that felt really friendly. Rejuvenous Health, a great example of another client for us that decided to zag in her industry. So we went for Luck. She's a functional medicine practitioner. We were just like, what if we could kind of match that and morph that with gold and a really rich green color? And so you feel the health, but it's not like a bright green. You know, we want something that felt really sophisticated. Maybe this is my last one. This is Dr. Tamara McIntyre. She goes by the name of Dr. Mac, which you can kind of see in her submark down here. She is a chiropractor and a mentor, but she loves pottery, and she loves the concept of 𝗕𝗿𝘰𝗲𝗿𝘀, like when things are imperfectly perfect. So we created a brand for her just based on a very simple text-based logo, but then we created all of these elements that she could work with around pottery and cracking open and putting things back together, and you know, how all these things kind of build on one another, but we wanted it to feel refined as well, refined and artistic. Last little quote here. I feel like this is a great one to end up on. This is from Steve Forbes. You would know him from Forbes magazine. He says, your brand is the single most important investment you can make in your business. And for me, I couldn't agree more with that. If you guys want to chat with me about anything branding related, you can use that QR code to book a call, or you can grab the link down here. Just take a screenshot of it. One thing that we do is we make people look really, really good online, and we love working with wellness brands. So if you want to hop on a call, definitely check out that QR code and hook it up.
Amazing.
Great.
Oh, that was so amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm just like, it's so inspiring hearing you talk about this, because of course you're so passionate and knowledgeable about it, but also I think you brought to light so many new sort of facets of branding that I think even for myself and many practitioners, like you don't realize it's like, you know, even where you're talking about your brand is about the feeling. So sort of that, bringing it back to that feeling tone. And I think that's such a cool way to look at it, because that feels really genuine and authentic, which I think we can get so pulled away from that when we're, potentially thinking about branding in maybe a traditional way or without, all the context that you provided. So I love that piece so much. And on that sort of feeling piece, getting clear on the feeling of your brand, I feel like what kind of came up for me was like this idea of, okay, with that, it's really important for us to know our why, the why we're doing business, the why we're wanting to help people. And so is that something that you talk to your clients about, that why piece? And like, if someone doesn't really have that clear, like where can they sort of start to like formulate that why?
I love that question. So we do a lot of, with the clients that we work on, we do a lot of strategy. And I always say it's like my job in Brand Better is like 1 part strategist, 1 part therapist, and 1 part cheerleader. So I do a lot, and kind of the therapist and the cheerleader a little bit go together, but they feel a little bit different in my heart. Because there's a lot of these deep questions that people ask themselves, and so we start off and some of our clients, they like know it off the bat. They can just kind of like rattle it all off. Like, this is my avatar and this is my why, and this is what I'm passionate about. And we kind of go from there. But there's also a lot of clients that like, they need to do some of that work first. And so obviously if people work with us, we kind of we hold their hand through that. And we do have like strategic exercises that we'll do in some of our meetings that kind of get us down to that. But I think for somebody who is on the DIY route, or just wants to, like, probably they already have a logo that they love and a brand that they love, but they still want to go deeper here. I think for me, I am a feeler, I'm a strategist, but at my core, I'm a real feeler. And I always go back to this, like, really, like, one of the things that I said around like knowing and loving your client. I feel like the answers are in the client, and sometimes we know that why, and it's really apparent. But we have a lot of people that work with us. They're like, they don't even know what kind of the avatar that they want to work with. They're like, but how do I decide? I want to do chronic fatigue. And then I also, this is going to be like people going through cancer treatments. And this over here is like little kids with asthma. And I like love it all, and so I'm always like, okay, we can work on one at a time. But like getting to that why, sometimes I know for myself, it took a while to uncover, but it was in my clients. It was in me really listening to them, not only listening to their story, but listening to like the feedback of what they really enjoyed about the process of working with us. That got me to my why. And so that could be for a functional medicine practitioner or a nutritionist. That's like, you will uncover your why through what resonates with how you work with people. It's like, what are the things that really light you up? What are the things that really, is it when somebody calls you up and they're like, they may be like, I lost 10 pounds this month. Or for somebody who works with menstrual cycle or PCOS, it may be like, I got my period for the first time in 6 months, or I got pregnant. It's like, that why is usually, not all the time, but I think it's usually connected to the transformation that you're creating in your client. And I didn't know that answer when you first asked me like what was going to come out, but like how it kind of came full circle to like, that is what it is. It's like, It's like the why is, it is the transformation that you're getting for people. Because if you're not lit up by the transformation that you're getting for people, then you're like, you're in the wrong industry. You need to like, you need to be somewhere else. Because like for us, we get lit up by like, my why is, and I didn't realize this at first, it came more subtly. And now I find like, if you ask me, what is your favorite thing that you do in business, which is kind of my why, like, which is your why? It's just like, what is your favorite thing that you do? And, for me, it's like, my favorite thing is when we make things out of pixels. We make things on Illustrator, right? But when our people see them, they like, I got a text the other day, it was one of our clients. Everybody's just like, I'm going to cry. And that's okay. That's my why, because like we make things that shouldn't be emotional and they're emotional. When the people see them, like I get like, I love my throat just thinking about it. Cause it's like, what could be better than that? Than like the feeling of like, you're creative, you make art, you share it with the person who's paid you money for that. So there's an exchange. And then they call us and say, oh my God, I'm looking at my logo presentation and I'm like crying, because it's like, it's not that it's beautiful, but it's like, what they say is like, it's so me. It's like me. This is the thing that represents me. And it's like, I got to be out there in the world. And that's like, I think that's a great barometer, right? That's mine. But like, for everybody listening, it's just like, what is your thing that when your clients say it, like that just connects with you so deeply? Like, and it's gonna be, for the most part, a results or transformation, because that's for almost all of us, that's what we're selling, is the transformation. Unless you're in an industry where you're like selling a product that doesn't really have much of a purpose. Like you're, I don't know, like selling a fidget spinner or something like that. But like, but I think for most people watching, we're in the transformational business, but it might be a little bit different about whether you're transforming people's fertility or their mental state, you know, when somebody, and you're a therapist and someone's just like, I like had a day without crying today, or I really, I like got a new job, you know, it's like, I don't know, Jen, that was a long-winded answer, but I think it's such a deep question, and I'm hoping that there's some value in that answer too.
Yeah, no, there is so much, Nicole. I feel that deeply. And I think for so many of our, well, you know, all of our community, that, you know, the transformation, the impact they can make with their clients is why they do it. And so I think that's such an awesome, like, starting point for them if they're feeling a little bit unclear on that, is to just go back to the people they're impacting and, you know, really tune into that feeling, and that's the why. So thank you for that. That was so beautiful.
No, I love the question too.
What's that?
I said, I love that question too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, and started tuning into your why in business. It's something that our community talks about a lot, and, you know, how to get started, and, you know, even, you know, we offer a platform, but there's so much that you can weave in with your why, and obviously with your branding as well. I know you talked about sort of like, at the end there, weaving your branding into everything, into all the touch points, into all the communications, into all the little messaging and that kind of thing. And immediately my mind's going to, you know, where in Practice Better can they, you know, weave all of that in? And there's so much opportunity for that, and within the platform too, which I think is really cool, whether it's within their programs or their, you know, notifications, confirming an appointment, or an autoresponder, or, you know, the branding colors that they're putting into the platform. Like there's lots of opportunity for that. So that was, yeah, it really stuck out to me.
A great point, and a great tie-in too, of how people can, your users can use the platform to apply more of their brand, you know, so whether it's the colors, whether it's the copywriting that goes out, and just even a reminder. So we're like, when they're using Practice Better to have a session, for example, how can you have that reminder have a little more personality? Yeah. You know, can you let an email reminder actually make somebody's day, or make them chuckle, or make them feel understood and really cared for by you? Because that's just developing one more step in the relationship. And that's really another, you know, thing that we're doing in branding, is just like consistently creating relationships with people. And we can't, when we build an online business, we can't always be there. We're not always going to be, you know, the brick and mortar equivalent of having somebody at the front door ready to greet you, you know? So if you don't have that online, we can be really thoughtful about how we use those touch points to just keep developing the relationship, and just further establishing who our brand is and how we show up for our people. Do we show up to make them laugh? Do we show up to give them information? Do we show up to make them feel, hey, we got you? You know, we may not be bright and bubbly, we may not be making you laugh, but like we are, but that's not appropriate for every single issue, every single business, right? You're working with people who are just got a cancer diagnosis. You maybe want to show up and be like, we have got your back. If there's one thing you want to know about us, it's that we are here. Like we're here, we're your support system. And so not every tone is appropriate for every brand, but having a touch point that really matches the brand is appropriate for every brand.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, Nicole, you're so generous in all that you shared with us today, and it was so valuable, and I know our community is just going to absolutely love it. I know you had something also to share with us, so they can sort of get started with their branding a little bit. So tell us about the Brand Planner Toolkit.
Yeah, so hopefully you can hear me because we just broke up a little bit, but we've got the Brand Planner Toolkit. That is, Jen's going to pop the link in below the video and when you guys are sharing this out there, but in case you want to grab it from our website, you can go to 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗰𝗄.com and you'll see a little tab just on the top that says Brand Planner Toolkit. That I think is a great start for just kind of grounding out some of the concepts we went through today. There are some questions in there, some very practical questions around assessing your brand and auditing your brand to see, how do you rate what you have? You know, it's like a logo, 1 through 10. How do you feel about your logo? If you're not rating that up there 8, 9, 10, then that's something that I would consider investing in the next year. Doesn't have to be right now, but just have an assessment. You can kind of use those tools to assess what you have, to plan out a little bit. It's the brand planner. So how do we, you know, it says the tagline is every great brand starts with a plan. So we want to make sure we have a plan before we start working on our brand. And then you'll also find things like some of our favorite branding books, tips on how to hire a branding agency. If it's not us, then how do you know, like what company, how do you judge a company to work on? And then that slideshow of clients and testimonials, you'll see that at the end too. So if you want to go deeper into watching some of those case studies, hearing the clients talk about their experience of what it's like when you're going through a rebrand. Like I said, not even just working with us, but it brings up a lot for people, you know, even that worthiness factor of like, am I worthy in investing in myself? Am I worthy investing in my business? And like, can I step into this brand? Like, because that's, you know, that takes a little bit. It's like you're taking yourself more, it's like one step more seriously. And that can bring up some stuff for people. And so one, knowing you have a support team for that, and also knowing that other people have been through that process too, can be really helpful.
Amazing. Yeah. So we'll put that link to grab that to download in the description below so everyone can grab that. There's so much valuable insight in there for them. And thank you so much, Nicole. It was such a pleasure and honor to have you here for this session. I know our community is going to absolutely love it. And if they want to connect further with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so over on the website, we are 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗰𝗄.com. And then where we're the most active is on Instagram, and you'll find us at @BrandBetterCo. So give us a follow over there, send us a DM, or, you know, hop on the website. And if people want to either book a call or just, you know, reach out to connect, you'll find all of our contact details over there too.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you so much again, Nicole. And thanks everyone for tuning into this Better Business Conversations session with Practice Better. We will see you all for the next one. Thanks everyone. Bye, Nicole.
Hey guys.
Bye.